This is Amplify You, the podcast about you discovering your message and broadcasting it to the world. If you're a coach, author, or speaker, you'll want to tune in. If you're looking for the best return on your time investment to get your message out to the world in a bigger way, we're giving you full access and behind the scenes look of how we're running our podcast, how our clients have found success, and what you can do to launch your podcast today. The world needs your message. I'm Michelle Abraham, the host. Join my family as we unleash your unique genius and find the connections you need to launch your adventure today. Join us and let's get amplified. Hello, Amplify You. Michelle Abraham, your host here today with a behind the mic interview. Today we are talking to Kalee Boisvert, and she is the host of Wealth and Wellness Podcast. So Kalee, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. I'm excited to be on.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you here too. And let me tell our audience a little bit more about you. So Kalee has been in the financial industry for over 13 years, and she's a creator and the host, obviously, of the Wealth and Wellness Podcast. She's currently writing a nonfiction book about money designed to empower and inspire women. That's awesome. So Kalee developed her love for money at a young age, growing up in a single parent household, watching her mom struggle with finances. She realized she needed to find her own way to earn money and save money, and then she wasn't going to let her circumstances define her. Kalee's busy raising a money-savvy daughter and is passionate about sharing her knowledge and supporting women in their own roles as serious earners and smart investors, because no women should ever feel anxious about having enough money to support themselves, their family, and their future. And I love that, Kalee. Such a great message.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it. Like I said, I'm passionate about it. Loved numbers and money from an early age.
Yeah, that's awesome. So many people, like, that's not things they talk about in their household. And it's kind of like, hush hush, or, it's not something you learn till later. And I think financial literacy, oh my goodness, if we could teach our children that, they're just going to be so much more smarter when they get into college and university. I know my financial background getting into college and university, where they offered you free credit cards. I was like, sign me up, and $3,000 in debt later. I was like, what do you mean I got to pay this off? So there was nobody there to tell me, like, oh my God, you should not do that. So,
yes.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your journey to kind of the beginnings of the Wealth and Wellness Podcast. What was your idea and your vision behind the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast idea was born out of wealth and wellness events that I was doing in person. So prior to COVID, I guess maybe I'll back up a few years. So like I said, I was very passionate about money and finances from an early age. Like my mom tells me about when I was 4 years old, and she asked me what I wanted to do when I grow up. And I said I wanted to collect money. And she laughed at me and said, Kalee, that's not a job. Like, that's a bank. And well, who's laughing now, Mom? Because I'm collecting money. But then, right? Yes. But then growing up, it was, I was so interested and fascinated by it. But then at the same time, my mom was a single mom. Money was really a struggle. It was stress. And that's what I saw. But I did learn early on that, well, if I still wanted to get these things that I saw, my friends having and whatnot, then I could save up for it myself. So I would do all the work, and, I would go along with my sister to her babysitting gigs and things like that, do everything I can to save up. And in high school, I started working 2 jobs to buy a car and 2 jobs to pay for my university. And so I was doing all these things, and it was really empowering to me, and I loved it. And so, with that love of finances, I knew that that was the career trajectory I was going down. And so I started straight into this industry right out of university. And, that my passion was very much helping to support women, because what I saw growing up is I don't want to see another woman go through what my mom went through. But then the messaging I kept receiving was that women aren't interested in this. Like, that was the industry was telling me, well, women really don't care. They're not interested. And I believed that because I was just so new, and it was all new to me. And I was like, okay, I must be an anomaly, and I just really love money, and there are apparently no other women that love money. So I was like, okay, that made me sad. But I went on with, working away. And then I went on mat leave and had my daughter. And I think it was that moment of just knowing that I was going to go back to work, and I was going to leave my daughter, with someone else to be watching her while I was pursuing my career, that I really needed to go back to that original, like what my why was and who I wanted to support. And so straight coming back from my mat leave, I, really leaned into that theme of I want to support women. I want to work with women. And I started doing lunch and learns for just women. So I remember like I started one, and it was just like an investing 101, and it was at my office, and I had only invited women, and I was nervous, and because I had heard so much that, well, women don't care and they're not interested. So I was, on edge. Is this even going to work? And all the guys at my office are already razzing me about having a women only thing. And then, it worked, and they showed up, and it was a big crowd. And then from that point on, I just kept doing these in-person events on different wealth topics. And at the same time, I was kind of going through my own journey. I was doing really well in my business, but it was like I was like hyper achieving, go, do. And I was doing my MBA, and I had finished that. And I had hit a point in my own life where I was like, well, why do I think my worth is connected to what I'm doing and the end results? And that's where this like wealth piece came in. So I started working with a life coach, and I was like, my mind was just blown. Like I was learning about meditation and, things we can do for self-care. And I was reading all these books, and I was just like a sponge absorbing it all. And I thought to myself, if I'm liking this so much, more women need to know about this. It's like women that are just busy and doing their own things, and like myself are just really wanting to achieve, and they forget this other side of things where, a wealthy life is also this balance. And in coaching, you have the wheel, and there's the pieces of the pie essentially. And there's family, there's career. And at the time when I started, mine was just like the whole pie was career. And I was like, well, this isn't right. So I kept incorporating the wellness piece and how much value and growth I was experiencing in my own life. Then I wanted to share that. So then I took my wealth events where it was learning about money and created wealth and wellness events. So I'd have other wellness providers come in. So life coaches, nutritionists, all sorts of different, wealth providers. And so I did those in person, and it was really successful. And then of course, COVID hit, and I was just kind of sitting there waiting it out, thinking I guess I'd start back when we were allowed to. And I remember my writing coach saying to me, well, you have to keep doing it. Like you have this audience and these women that love this. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I took them online, and then when I was doing them online, I'm like, these are great conversations. Like, how can we record these and share it with even more women? Because then you start, realizing that it doesn't have to be women in your same city, or that it can be a bigger audience than that. And so I was like, well, I love podcasts, and I listen to them on the go. So let's make what I'm already doing into a podcast. So that's the long story right from the beginning, I guess, of where it all kind of came together. So it was very natural, because it was something that was already happening in person. And it was just, well, it was a no-brainer to make it into a recorded event too, where more people could access it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love I just love the concept of your show, because it's different than other kind of money related shows, or different than other health related shows, where you really combine the two and help people realize that they can't have one without the other, that they're both intertwined with each other. Have you found, I guess over the course of, it's almost been like over a year since you launched your podcast. So over the course of the first year, how has that been for you as a podcast host? Have you found like you've solidified your voice more? Have you found you've grown your audience at all?
Yeah, it's been great. Like the audience keeps growing, and I get the opportunity to speak at other women only events. And I always tell them about my podcast, because there's topics that come up in my business that I think, like, if people keep asking these questions, it must be that more people have the same questions. So it's like things like, oh, what's the difference between an RSP and a TFSA? I'm like, well, that's a great podcast episode then. So I don't have to keep telling the same thing over and over. And I'm like, there's a lot of details to it. So that's a full episode in itself. So it's been good because it's, my existing clients, it's helpful for new people I meet along the way. And then just the wellness piece, what I love is that, like you said, like seeing how they blend, because I'll have guests on that, don't have the wealth side necessarily. Like they'll be very much in their wellness position. But when I tell them, wealth and wellness, and I think there's a link between our self-worth and net worth, they like to try to find a way to spin and see how that what they do does impact wealth and our money and that side of things too, which I love that they're, seeing that connection as well. And us all realizing that, because it's money is nothing in itself. I always say it's just, what good would if I said, I'm going to make you a millionaire today, but then also said to you, you can't spend a single dollar of it, then it wouldn't matter. It's irrelevant, but it's more, what money affords us the ability to do. And then in money, there's all this other stuff, right? There's our money stories and our money beliefs and our money blocks. And so I've gotten to just have so many amazing guests on, and I have certain guests even come back on, which has been awesome to even explore other topics, because we get done the one topic and, we say, oh, it would be so good to talk about this now. It's something that maybe comes up. So it's been like amazing, and it's just easy and it flows. And yeah, I enjoy it. And I'm going to keep doing it. And hopefully I continue to have an audience that actually, cares and wants to hear it as well. But I get so much out of it. And I know at least my mom's listening. She always tells me she's listening.
Well, according to Listen Notes, you have a top 10 podcast, which is really awesome. And for those of you listening that don't know what Listen Notes is this podcasting indexer. So out of 2.4 million podcasts that are out there right now, Kalee's podcast is in the top 10%. So that's really amazing. Wow. So congrats on that. And that's huge after a year. So there's more than just your mom listening.
Yes. Oh, good.
Yeah. I know that's what I always say. My dad always comments on my shows, and I'm like, I wonder if anyone else listens besides him. But it's nice to know they are. And then
I tell my daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, I tell my daughter about it too. My 6-year-old, she does not care at all. Sometimes it'll come on in the car because I'm like just trying to hear when I did, or and then she just like rolls her eyes, and because I joke around about how I'm famous and I have a podcast, and she's just like, oh goodness.
That's awesome. Well, she'll appreciate it later. Like, I feel like podcasts are really great legacy things that you can leave there for your kids. And, you mentioned a few great ways, and I want to, because our audience are people thinking about podcasting or people who are podcasting already. You mentioned some really cool things in what you were saying there. Like, one of them I want to pull apart is the fact that when you are recording your episode, it's like, it is also amazing coaching and learning for yourself. It's like, I think it's like the best personal development you could ever get. Is being a podcast host is like free university here. Yeah. Like, you get to learn so much about other topics that you're interested in. And also the networking, you're communicating and collaborating with other practitioners and people that are in your space or not in your space, in a completely different world than you're in, but it maybe allows and opens the door for more business to happen. Have you seen that happen in your podcasting experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Like finding ways to collaborate, which I love. And like I said, I love exposing women to these things that they're not even aware of, because these wealth and or wellness providers and what they do, it's an opportunity to promote what they do. And there's oftentimes a listener that needs exactly what they're describing. And so it's a good opportunity for them to hear and learn more about it in, a comfortable way, just to understand what it is they do and the value and the benefits. And then if they're like, wow, I need that in my life, then them to reach out to that person. And I've really focused on just having female guests. Like, I am very focused on working to support women, and I want that to show in my podcast as well. I want to promote female run, female led businesses. And I will do anything in my power to create, more of a, grow their audience as well with this. And I think that's something I love doing as well. And then from that, they can also present to the group on a live lunch and learn session or anything like that. But I'm such a proponent of women out there that are doing their things, especially during something like COVID, where it's probably changed the face of a lot of people's business. And so if there's any way we can support each other, I think this is like a very great way and means to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. I find the podcasting space is such a collaborative space. It's not competitive. It's really collaborative and allows for so many collaborations. You and I might have a show on similar topics, but coming on each other's show is actually a great thing. Expands our audience and it really gives our audience a different perspective. It adds more value. I think it's really great. One of the other things that you said too, Kalee, was such a smart business building tool as well, is that when you're looking at what your clients are asking you on a continuous basis, like, oh, I'm getting this question over and over and over again, this would be a great podcast episode. And so actually then recording those. And so when you're onboarding new clients, or when you're, when people are asking you those questions, say, oh, go to episode 5. I recorded a great podcast episode on this. It gives them a tool to then, if they want to get to know you more before they work with you, now you have all this education that you've provided to them and so much value you've provided to them before they work with you. I think that's such a great strategy for growing your business.
Yeah, it is, because it's like the intricacies of what we do, and we can't cover it all in, an introduction meeting with a client or a phone call. But yeah, I find myself always saying, I did a really good podcast on that, actually. Go listen to episode whichever, and that should answer all your questions. But so it's just because there is so much intricacies to my business and my industry, and it's hard to cover it all off. And so I think there are so many people asking the same things or wanting to know the same things. And financial literacy, I think we're all like, everyone's just wanting to know more about that. 'Cause like you said, we don't learn enough of it along the way when we're young and throughout our, education, school education, things like that. So I think everyone's really hungry for more knowledge when it comes to financial literacy too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're making it fun too, yeah. Right? Like it's not just dry. It's not boring. You're making it realistic and also the ability to implement it into your life and like integrate it in your life. So it's not just like a whole bunch of dry knowledge about how you do X, Y, Z in the financial world. You're using real examples, real stories. You're integrating it with wellness, and it's like a whole picture. It's a holistic picture of your life, which I think that's a really great way that you've done that. And I think you're welcome. And I think the listeners appreciate that. And they know, they need to know, I think I think your people who are coming to you to work with you, they need to know a little bit of the background or education about how you do some things in the financial world. But like you said, it's hard to cover that in like a first session, or, sometimes you get tired of repeating yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's a really great tool to support your customers without having to be the one to say it over and over and over again. If they play that episode over and over, great, because that's just more downloads for you.
Exactly. I know. Well, I teach an Investing 101 course, and I was like, there's a lot of people that have these same questions. And so it's not like the full course that I did in an episode, but I gave kind of like a little, a quick kind of tidbit of it. Like, so I actually have but it's 2 parts. Cause my Investing 101 course is like a 8-hour course, but I did 2 podcast episodes. So like a part 1 and a part 2 of Investing 101. But yeah, it's just kind of like a snippet or a little bit. And then if people want to know more, then maybe it is that they want to take the full course, or maybe it is that they want to go read a book about, whatever concept they want to learn more. But yeah, I'm trying to touch on those topics in a way that's not overwhelming, because my industry, we like to overcomplicate things. We like to make things super, much more difficult than it needs to be. And I'm hoping that I'm making it just more approachable, comfortable for people.
Yeah, and interesting for women to want to learn more about, right? Traditionally, I don't think our moms or our grandmas really had much to do with the finances, but now this is becoming even more important with, especially when people become single parents, or, even just in relationships too. It's more important to know your finances and know your numbers, and so you can help be a partner in planning things and incurring wealth. So it's something that I wish they learned. I wish they taught a lot more in our younger years, and especially in school. I think it'd be really great to have that. You mentioned you're raising a financially savvy daughter. So can you share with us a few tips of the things that you're teaching your daughter now that's going to be really helpful for her as she gets older?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I talk to her about money all the time. I talk to her about the stock markets too. And I'll say, they're up today, they're down today. That stuff I think just goes straight over her head. She's just like, what is this nonsense? But I think there is so many ways we can teach our kids. And it's just having them be part of the conversation, and it can be still age appropriate ways, but my daughter is 6. So it's, just simple things like counting money and change, because we don't really see physical money as much anymore, but it is kind of the basis still of what's behind it. Like we don't want our kids to think we can endlessly just tap these cards and there's an endless supply of money behind that. So
it does feel like that sometimes, right?
It does. And they're probably seeing that and go, oh, just use your card, just use your credit card, or just use your, no, but we want to show them, what's behind it, and the money and and it's so cute when they like count their change and, they empty their piggy bank and things like that. Ivy does. And then she gets her own money to go to the store. And, we talk about what she can afford with it. And, when she has very big ambitions for something bigger, it's, well, you only have this much money, it costs this much. And so having those conversations, so they start to learn, choices, and should I save it longer, or should I spend it, should I blow it all now on these, a bunch of little things, or what does that look like? And so they get to be that active participants. Because I always say money mistakes are important, and they're the learning lessons. And so let's really push those in when our kids are young, right? Like, let's do all the money lessons early on. So when you're making, when you spend all your money and run out and you're 12 years old, well, it's not a really big deal. I guess you'll just have to wait till your next birthday or whatever. But when you're in your 20s and you're living on your own and you blow your paycheck and you have nothing to pay your rent, that's not something. Yeah. So it's just like encouraging those money mistakes and exploring it and getting curious and letting them be empowered. And then as they get older, even more so letting them, participate and be part of the conversation. Maybe it's that you're having a birthday party and you have a budget for what you're going to spend on their birthday party. So they get to choose, what the food is or the activities are, and they have to stay within their budget. And then as soon as they start actually earning an income, like maybe they're starting to have part-time jobs, then it's the conversations of, talking about saving and spending and saving for things long-term. And then into the teenage years, it's even conversations about investing and stock investing. I did a project in grade 7 in my computer class when we were first learning Excel. And it was that we had to pick a bunch of stocks and then, put them on the Excel spreadsheet and chart their progress and see how they did. And I loved it. Like I was like hooked when I saw that, because again, I loved money and I was like, this is amazing. And I didn't know what a stock was, but I learned, and I looked around my house and I looked for the things I was buying. At the time, it was like all the clothes were like Guess clothes. And so I invested in Guess, and I looked at my makeup and it was like L'Oreal. So I found out what the publicly traded company was for them. And it was such a neat, fun experience. It wasn't real money, right? So you get to, it's like a mock kind of investing scenario that you can do with your teenager. So it's, again, we're just giving them these lessons early on in this very safe environment. Whatever you're doing with them, it's a nice, safe environment. So then when they're out in the world and they're older, they can start, it's not the first time they're seeing those things. When they're 25, then it's not the first time they're finding out what a stock is, that you showed them, or that they learned some of that when they were a teenager.
That's awesome. You love this. You love this. My daughter's kindergarten class yesterday, they over the last 3 weeks of school, they've learned how to run an ice cream store. So they all had different jobs that they had to apply for. They had to learn the job, and then they had to do the job yesterday. So they actually had an ice cream store. All the parents were invited to. We had to call and make a reservation at the restaurant. We had servers and bussers, and they took our order, and then they went to the ice cream. Made us sundaes, they brought us back, and then they had to take our money and get us change and do this thing. It was the cutest thing ever. This class was just, they were all so proud of themselves. It was so cute how they all learned this job. And my cousin he went to school to work in the restaurant industry, and they ran a mock restaurant at university. He's like, I did that in university, not kindergarten. But it was so cool for them to see that value of, them, coming up with this job and applying for the job and taking ownership of learning it, and then doing the money to stuff. It was just so cute. I was like, what a cool idea.
Yeah. I love it. Like, I think we, decide that maybe they're not ready for it. And we think like, oh, this is too complicated or something like that. But I think they're little sponges and they're much more intelligent and, they grasp things so quickly that this is the best time to be teaching them these concepts about money because they are in such learning mode that it can be so valuable. And I think some of the hesitation too is just like when people feel a bit insecure about their own financial literacy, teaching your children can be overwhelming and scary, but learning together and knowing that you're on that path with them too. Like the Investing 101 course I host, I love when I see like women that bring their teenage children in. So like their 17-year-old or 18-year-old daughter, it's amazing. And I think it's such a good activity for them to do together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so cool seeing kids learn those kind of things early on. And like you mentioned earlier, like watching my son blow his $20 on something that he used for 5 minutes and then was mad the next day because he had spent it. I was like, well, that was a good lesson to learn now, rather than when that's $200 or $2,000.
Yes.
It was great planning. That was good. Let's get that lesson out of the way.
Exactly. So maybe next time he'll be like, maybe I'm not going to spend my $20 here.
Maybe I'll save it a little longer. Yeah, exactly. That's so awesome. So Kalee, any last bit of words of wisdom for people who are out there thinking about starting a podcast, thinking about jumping on this journey? Any words of wisdom for them after your year of podcasting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just like really leaning into, what your passion is and what you love, because then you're going to do it because you love doing it. And then the audience and the people and the feedback is the icing on the cake, but you get to do what you love and what you're passionate about. So really just like diving deep into that and what you love and being open to collaborating. If it is a bit scary and intimidating, the thought of starting it, just collaborate, have guests on. Like I have guests on so often. And again, it's when I'm struggling to find my own topic or I just don't have the time. And it's just so nice to have a guest on. And like you said, it brings, new ideas, exposes us to a bigger audience. So I think that's a good way to ease into it, is just have, guests on your podcast, and it's going to help you sort of feel a little bit more comfortable, I think, about the whole thing. Because sometimes I think it's just when you're having your own episodes and talking away for a while, you're just wondering, you're like, is this getting boring? Am I forgetting what I'm talking about? So yeah, I would definitely say like guests are fun and key to growing it, and just really leaning into what you love and having that be what it is about in your message. That's a great thing about podcasts, is they give us this platform to share in what we love.
Yeah, you never run out of ideas when you love what you're talking about, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I love it. Well, awesome. Kalee, thank you so much. Amplify You Family. Please go give Kalee a review on her amazing podcast. That is the Wealth and Wellness podcast. So make sure you go and check it out on all the major platforms out there. Give her a 5-star review. And then, if you have any questions, leave us a comment and review, Facebook, wherever you want to find us, and let us know what your questions are around podcasting. We'd love to hear them. And Kalee, congratulations to your year of podcasting success so far, and top 10% of all podcasts out there is amazing. So you're doing it right and having fun doing it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you, Michelle, for having me on.
You're welcome. All right, guys, Amplify You. Go out there and have a great week. Remember, your uniqueness is your genius. So go and put it into good use and make a podcast. All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Kalee.
Thank you.